The hospital's fluorescent lights flickered, casting jagged shadows across the waiting room where Ethan sat, his hands trembling around a lukewarm coffee. His son, Liam, was upstairs, fighting for breath, his small body tethered to machines that beeped like a cruel metronome. Ethan had promised Liam he'd be there when he woke up. But the call from his mother's lawyer had torn him away. His half-brother, Caleb, was alone, rejected by their family, and needed him now. Ethan hadn't seen Caleb in years. The boy was a stranger, a product of their father's second marriage, a life Ethan had barely acknowledged. But the lawyer's words were clear. Their father had disowned Caleb for coming out as gay, leaving the 16-year-old with nowhere to go. Ethan's heart twisted. He knew what it was to be cast out. His own father had never accepted Ethan's partner, Marcus, either. Driving through the rain-slicked streets of Portland, Oregon, Ethan found Caleb shivering outside a gas station, his hoodie soaked, his eyes hollow but defiant. "You don't have to do this," Caleb muttered, avoiding Ethan's gaze. "I'm fine." "You're not," Ethan said, his voice steady but warm. He saw himself in Caleb's stubborn pride, the way he tried to hide his fear. Ethan's life with Marcus and Liam was already stretched thin, hospital bills piling up. Marcus working double shifts at the fire station, but he couldn't leave Caleb to the streets. "You're coming with me," Ethan insisted, opening the car door. Caleb hesitated, then slid inside, his silence louder than the rain. At home, Marcus greeted them with his usual warmth, though his eyes betrayed exhaustion. Their small apartment felt smaller with Caleb's presence, his backpack a constant reminder of his impermanence. Liam, still recovering from his last surgery, lit up when he met Caleb. "You're my uncle?" Liam asked, his voice weak but curious. Caleb's guarded expression softened, and for a moment, Ethan thought this could work. A family, pieced together from broken parts. But Caleb was a storm waiting to break. He was quiet, too quiet, watching everything with sharp eyes. Ethan tried to connect, sharing stories of his own struggles coming out. The fights with their father, the years of building a life with Marcus. Caleb listened but offered little. His responses clipped, his walls impenetrable. Marcus, ever patient, cooked extra portions, left notes for Caleb, tried to make him feel at home. Yet Caleb kept his distance, slipping out at odd hours, returning with vague excuses. Weeks passed, and Ethan noticed small things missing: a watch, a few dollars from the kitchen jar. He brushed it off. Caleb was a kid, adjusting. But the hospital bills loomed larger, and Liam's next surgery, a critical procedure to repair his heart, was scheduled in a month. Ethan and Marcus had scraped together every cent for the surgery fund, kept in a locked box under their bed. It was their lifeline, their hope for Liam's future. One night, Ethan woke to a crash. He stumbled into the living room, heart pounding, to find Caleb frozen, a broken mug at his feet. "I was just getting water," Caleb stammered, but his eyes darted to the bedroom door. Ethan's stomach sank. He checked the box the next morning. $10,000. Gone. Caleb was gone too. His backpack missing. No note. No trace. Ethan's knees buckled. That money was Liam's chance at life. Marcus held him as he raged, then cried. "We trusted him," Ethan whispered, guilt and betrayal twisting like a knife. Marcus's jaw tightened. We'll find him. And we'll get it back. But Portland's streets were vast. And Caleb was a shadow, slipping through cracks Ethan didn't even know existed. The hospital called that afternoon. Liam's surgery was at risk without the funds. Ethan's promise to his son felt like a lie. He drove through the city, searching shelters, parks, anywhere a runaway might hide. Caleb's face haunted him, those defiant eyes. That flicker of guilt. Had Ethan failed him? Had he pushed too hard? Or not enough? The questions gnawed. But so did the anger. Caleb had taken more than money. He'd stolen hope. Ethan's phone buzzed. Marcus, with a lead. A shelter volunteer had seen a kid matching Caleb's description. Ethan gripped the wheel, torn between saving his son and redeeming his brother. Ethan's truck rumbled through Portland's underbelly, past neon-lit diners and graffiti-streaked walls. The shelter was a squat brick building, its windows smudged with years of neglect. Inside, the air smelled of bleach and desperation. Ethan scanned the crowd-tired faces, hunched shoulders, but no Caleb. The volunteer, a woman with kind eyes and a clipboard, confirmed the sighting. He was here last night, she said. Didn't stay long. Looked scared. Scared. The word stuck in Ethan's throat. He wanted to hate Caleb, to let anger drown the guilt. But he couldn't. Caleb was a kid, barely 16, carrying wounds Ethan could only guess at. He thanked the volunteer and stepped back into the rain, his resolve hardening. He'd find Caleb, not just for the money, but to understand why. Back home, Marcus was pacing, his phone pressed to his ear, calling every contact he had from the fire station. A buddy saw a kid like Caleb near the river, Marcus said, his voice tight. He's running with some rough types. Ethan's chest tightened. The riverfront was no place for a kid. Drug deals. Fights. Worse. He grabbed his jacket. I'm going. The Willamette River gleamed under streetlights, its banks lined with tents and shadows. Ethan moved carefully, his eyes scanning for Caleb's lanky frame. A group of teens loitered near a burned-out fire pit, their laughter sharp and hollow. Ethan approached, his voice steady. I'm looking for Caleb. About 16. Dark hair. Hoodie. The kids exchanged glances, then scattered. One lingered. A girl with a lip ring. He was here, she said, pointing to an abandoned warehouse. But he's in deep. The warehouse reeked of mildew and rust. Ethan's flashlight cut through the dark, catching glimpses of graffiti and broken glass. Then he saw him, Caleb, curled in a corner, his face bruised, his backpack clutched tight. Caleb, Ethan called, his voice softer than he meant. Caleb flinched, scrambling to his feet, ready to bolt. Don't, Ethan said, stepping closer. Just talk to me. Caleb's eyes were wild, but he didn't run. You don't get it. He spat. I didn't want to take it. I had to. Ethan's anger flared, but he forced it down. Had to. For what? Liam's dying. Caleb. That money was his chance. Caleb's face crumpled, tears mixing with dirt. I owed someone. He whispered. They said they'd kill me. Ethan's heart sank. He saw the truth in Caleb's trembling hands, the fear in his eyes. Who? he demanded. Caleb shook his head, backing away. I can't tell you. They'll find me. Ethan grabbed his arm. Not hard, but firm. You're coming home. We'll figure this out. Caleb resisted, but exhaustion won. He followed Ethan to the truck. Silent. Broken. At home, Marcus cleaned Caleb's bruises while Ethan sat, head in hands. The money was gone, spent on a debt Caleb wouldn't explain. Who were these people? Marcus asked, his voice low but urgent. Caleb stared at the floor. Guys I met. They gave me a place to stay when Dad kicked me out. But it wasn't free. Ethan's stomach churned. He'd taken Caleb in to protect him, but he hadn't seen how deep the damage ran. The next morning, Liam's doctor called. The surgery was 2 weeks away, and they needed a payment plan or Liam would be moved to palliative care. Ethan's vision blurred with tears. He looked at Caleb, sleeping on the couch, and felt the weight of his choices. He could turn Caleb over to the police. But what would that solve? The money was gone, and Liam's life hung in the balance. Ethan and Marcus sat up late, mapping out options. They could sell the truck, take out loans, beg the hospital for time. But every path felt like a dead end. Caleb woke at dawn, overhearing their whispered plans. I'll fix it, he said, his voice small but determined. Ethan didn't believe him, but something in Caleb's eyes, a flicker of the boy he'd hoped to save, made him pause. How? Ethan asked. Caleb's plan was risky. He knew where the money had gone, a dealer named Rico, who ran a crew near the river. Caleb could get it back, but it meant confronting the life he'd tried to escape. Ethan refused at first. You're not going back there, he said. But Caleb was stubborn. I caused this. Let me make it right. Against his better judgment, Ethan agreed. But he wasn't letting Caleb go alone. The riverfront was a maze of shadows, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and diesel. Ethan and Caleb moved silently, guided by Caleb's shaky directions. Ethan's heart pounded, not just for the money, but for the boy beside him, who seemed smaller under the weight of his choices. Caleb's eyes darted, scanning for threats. Rico's crew hangs out by the old docks, he whispered. He's got the cash. Ethan gripped Caleb's shoulder. You stay behind me. No heroics. Caleb nodded, but his jaw was set, a mix of fear and resolve. The docks loomed ahead, rusted cranes clawing at the sky. A group of figures huddled near a fire barrel, their voices low and sharp. Ethan recognized Rico, immediately tall, wiry, with a predator's grin. Caleb froze, his breath hitching. Stay here, Ethan said, stepping forward. Rico's eyes locked onto him, sizing him up. You the brother? Rico asked, his voice smooth but dangerous. Ethan nodded, keeping his stance relaxed but ready. You've got something that belongs to me. Money for my son's surgery. Rico laughed, a sound that grated like gravel. Kid owed me. He paid. That's the deal. Ethan's fists clenched, but he kept his voice steady. He's 16. You took advantage of a scared kid. Give it back. And we walk away. Rico's crew tightened around him, their hands hovering near pockets. Ethan felt Caleb behind him, trembling but silent. Then Caleb stepped forward, his voice shaking but clear. I'll work it off. Rico. Whatever you want. Just give them the money. Ethan's heart lurched. No. He snapped, pulling Caleb back. Rico's grin widened. Kid's got guts. But money's gone. Spend it on product. Ethan's vision swam with rage. But he saw the truth in Rico's ice no cash. No mercy. He grabbed Caleb's arm, backing away. We're done here. Rico shrugged, turning back to his crew. But his words lingered. Don't come back. Hero. In the truck, Caleb broke. I'm sorry. He sobbed, his voice raw. I didn't know what else to do. Ethan wanted to scream, to shake him. But he saw the boy's pain, years of rejection, fear, survival. Why didn't you tell me? Ethan asked, his voice softer. Caleb wiped his eyes. I thought you'd hate me. Like Dad did. Ethan drove in silence, the weight of Caleb's words settling in. Back home, Marcus was waiting, his face etched with worry. Ethan recounted the confrontation, the dead end. Marcus's eyes darkened. We're not giving up, he said. There's another way. He pulled out his laptop, scrolling through community forums, crowdfunding pages. People might help, he said. For Liam. Ethan hesitated. Pride had kept him from asking for help. But Liam's life was worth more than his ego. They spent the night drafting a plea. A raw, honest post about their family, Liam's fight, and the theft that threatened it all. Caleb watched, guilt etched into his face. I'll help, he said quietly. Whatever you need. The post went live the next morning. By evening, donations trickled in $50, $100. Small acts of kindness from strangers. Ethan's throat tightened as he read the messages. For Liam. Stay strong. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. The hospital deadline loomed, and Ethan felt time slipping through his fingers. Caleb, meanwhile, was restless, scribbling in a notebook, avoiding their eyes. That night, Caleb slipped out again. Ethan caught him at the door. Where are you going? He demanded. Caleb's eyes were fierce. To fix this. I know someone who might help. Ethan grabbed his keys. Not alone. They drove to a rundown bar on the edge of town, where Caleb met an older man, gray hair, gentle eyes, a former mentor from a youth shelter. He knows people, Caleb said. People who might loan us the money. The man, Tom, listened to their story, his face softening. I can't promise anything, he said, but I'll make calls. Ethan felt a flicker of hope, but also dread. Loans came with strings, and they were already drowning. Still, he thanked Tom, and they returned home, Caleb quieter than ever. Ethan wondered if he'd ever truly know his brother or if Caleb would always be a stranger, running from his own heart. The apartment was a pressure cooker. Every tick of the clock a reminder of Liam's fading chances. Ethan refreshed the crowdfunding page obsessively, watching the total creep up $2. 000. $3. 000, but still far from the $10. 000 they needed. Marcus cooked breakfast, his hands steady but his eyes distant, while Caleb sat at the table, picking at his food, his notebook open to a page of frantic scribbles. Ethan caught a glimpse names. Numbers. A map of the riverfront. What's this? He asked, his voice sharper than intended. Caleb slammed the notebook shut. Nothing. Just ideas. Ethan didn't push, but suspicion gnawed at him. Caleb's secrecy felt like a betrayal, a reminder of the stolen money. Yet when Liam shuffled into the room, his oxygen tank trailing, Caleb's face lit up. "Hey, champ," Caleb said, ruffling Liam's hair. Liam grinned. Weak but genuine. "You staying forever?" Liam asked. Caleb's smile faltered. "Maybe," he said, his voice thick. Ethan's heart ached. He wanted to believe in Caleb, to see him as family. But trust was a fragile thing, and Caleb had shattered it. Marcus sensed the tension, pulling Ethan aside. "He's trying," Marcus whispered. "Give him a chance." Ethan nodded, but his eyes stayed on Caleb, who was helping Liam with a puzzle. Their laughter a rare moment of light. Tom called that afternoon. "I found someone," he said. "A private lender. They'll cover the surgery, but it's high interest." "You sure about this?" Ethan's stomach twisted. Debt was a trap, but Liam's life was worth any cost. "Set it up," he said. Tom arranged a meeting at a coffee shop downtown. Neutral ground. Ethan brought Marcus, leaving Caleb with Liam and a neighbor to watch them. The lender was a woman in her 50s. Sharp-eyed. Her suit crisp. "I can give you $10. 000, she said, sliding a contract across the table. "But it's 15% interest. Monthly. You miss a payment. I don't wait." Ethan read the terms, his hands sweating. It was a lifeline, but a heavy one. Marcus squeezed his hand under the table. "We'll make it work," he said. They signed, the weight of the decision settling like a stone. Back home, Caleb was waiting, his eyes red. "I heard you," he said. "You're borrowing money because of me." Ethan braced for an argument, but Caleb's voice broke. "I'm going to pay you back. I swear." Ethan wanted to believe him, but words weren't enough. "Then start by being honest," Ethan said. "What's in the notebook?" Caleb hesitated, then handed it over. Pages of names, addresses, sketches of the docks. "I'm tracking Rico's crew," he admitted. "I think I can get the money back. Not all of it, but some." Ethan's anger flared. "You're not going near them again." Caleb's eyes hardened. "You don't get it. I owe you. I owe Liam." Marcus stepped in, his voice calm but firm. "We're a family, Caleb. We don't fix things by running into danger. We do it together." Caleb's shoulders slumped, but he nodded. Ethan felt a flicker of hope. Maybe Caleb was starting to understand. The crowdfunding page hit $5,000 that night. A small miracle. Strangers were rallying, moved by Liam's story, by their family's fight. But the lender's contract loomed, and Ethan couldn't shake the fear of losing everything. He and Marcus stayed up, planning how to stretch their income, how to keep Liam stable. Caleb listened from the couch, his notebook open again. Ethan noticed a new Pagea letter, half-written, addressed to their father. "What's this?" Ethan asked, softer this time. Caleb's voice was barely a whisper. I thought, maybe if I could explain, he'd help. For Liam. Ethan's chest tightened. Their father had cut them both off. But Caleb's hope, however faint, was a reminder of the boy he'd taken in. We don't need him, Ethan said, his hand on Caleb's shoulder. We've got each other. For the first time, Caleb didn't pull away. The hospital's sterile smell clung to Ethan as he sat by Liam's bed, watching his son's chest rise and fall. Each breath a small victory. The surgery was a week away, and the lender's money had secured Liam's spot. But the cost hung over them like a storm cloud. Ethan glanced at his phone. $500 on the crowdfunding page. A testament to strangers' kindness. But still short. Marcus was at the fire station, pulling another double shift, while Caleb stayed home, under strict orders to stay put. Caleb, though, was restless. Ethan found him in the living room at midnight, his notebook open, a burner phone in his hand. What the hell is this? Ethan demanded, snatching the phone. A text glowed on the screen. Meet me at the docks. Midnight. Bring the cash. Ethan's blood ran cold. You're still talking to Rico. Caleb's eyes were defiant but scared. I can get some of it back, he said. He's got a stash. Ethan's voice shook with fury. You think you can fix this by playing hero? You're going to get yourself killed. Caleb stood, his fists clenched. I'm not a kid. Ethan. I messed up. Let me fix it. Ethan grabbed his arm. You're not going anywhere. Caleb yanked free, his voice breaking. I'm trying to save Liam. Like you are. The words hit Ethan like a punch. He saw the guilt in Caleb's eyes, the desperate need to make things right. But the docks were a death trap, and Ethan couldn't lose Caleb not after everything. We do this my way, Ethan said, his tone final. No secrets. Caleb nodded, reluctant but compliant, and handed over the burner phone. Ethan saw the text, Rico's taunts, Caleb's pleas. It was worse than he'd thought. The next morning, Ethan called Tom, the shelter mentor, for advice. Tom's voice was grim. Rico's bad news. But he's not untouchable. You want the money. You need leverage. Tom suggested a contact a cop who worked the riverfront, someone who owed him a favor. Ethan hesitated. Involving the police could backfire, especially for Caleb, who was already on edge. But Liam's surgery was days away, and they were out of options. The cop, Officer Daniels, met them at a diner, his uniform traded for plain clothes. Rico's crew is small-time but slippery, Daniels said. If your brother can ID their stash, I can move on it. No promises on the money. Ethan glanced at Caleb, who nodded, his jaw tight. I know where they keep it, Caleb said. But Rico's watching me. Ethan's stomach churned. He didn't trust the plan, but he trusted Caleb's resolve. They agreed to let Daniels set up a sting, with Caleb providing details but staying out of the line of fire. Ethan and Marcus spent the day preparing, talking to the hospital, updating the crowdfunding page. Donations hit $8,000. A lifeline, but still not enough. Ethan felt the pressure crushing him, but Marcus's steady hand kept him grounded. That night, Caleb sat with Liam, reading him a comic book, his voice soft and steady. Ethan watched from the doorway, his heart torn. Caleb was trying. But the risk he'd taken contacting Rico behind their backs felt like another betrayal. Yet Liam's laughter, weak but real, reminded Ethan why he'd taken Caleb in. Family wasn't perfect. It was messy, flawed, worth fighting for. Daniels called at dawn. "We got a location," he said. "Old warehouse. East side. Stay clear. Let us handle it." Ethan agreed. But his eyes were on Caleb, who was packing his backpack, his movements quick and nervous. "You're not going," Ethan said. Caleb's eyes flashed. "I know Rico. I can help." Ethan's voice hardened. "You've done enough." Caleb flinched, but stayed put, his silence heavy. As Ethan and Marcus waited for news, the hospital called. Liam's condition was worsening. The surgery couldn't wait. Ethan's world tilted. He looked at Caleb, sitting alone, his notebook clutched tight. "We're going to make it," Ethan said, more to himself than Caleb. But the words felt hollow, and Caleb's eyes held a truth Ethan wasn't ready to face. The hospital's waiting room was a purgatory of fluorescent lights and stale coffee. Each beep from Liam's monitor upstairs a reminder of time running out. Ethan sat, his hands clasped, while Marcus paced, checking his phone for updates from Daniels. Caleb was at home, under the neighbor's watch. But Ethan's mind kept drifting to his notebook. His secrets. His desperate need to fix what he'd broken. The crowdfunding page hit $9,000. So close yet so far. And the lender's contract loomed like a guillotine. Daniels called at noon. "We hit the warehouse," he said. His voice clipped. "Found drugs. Weapons. But no cash. Rico's in custody. But he's not talking." Ethan's hope crumbled. He thanked Daniels, his voice hollow, and hung up. Marcus's hand found his, their fingers intertwining. "We'll find another way," Marcus said. But his eyes betrayed the same fear Ethan felt. Liam's surgery was tomorrow, and they were out of time. Ethan drove home, his mind racing. Caleb was on the couch, his eyes red, his notebook open to a new Pagea letter to Liam. Words of apology and love. Ethan's anger softened, but only slightly. "You knew the money was gone," he said, his voice low. Caleb nodded, tears spilling. "I thought I could get it back. I thought I could be someone you'd trust." Ethan's chest tightened. He wanted to scream, to forgive, to hold Caleb and tell him it would be okay. But Liam's life hung in the balance, and Ethan's heart was torn. "You're still here," he said finally. "That's a start." Caleb's eyes met his, a flicker of hope breaking through the guilt. Marcus joined them, his voice gentle. "We're family. Caleb. We don't give up." The hospital called again. Liam was stable, but the surgery had to happen at dawn. The lender's money would cover it, but the debt would haunt them for years. Ethan and Marcus spent the night packing a bag for Liam, their movements mechanical, their words few. Caleb watched, silent, then slipped out to the balcony. Ethan followed, finding him staring at the city lights, his breath visible in the cold. "I wrote to Dad," Caleb said, his voice barely audible. "Send it today? I know he won't help, but I had to try." Ethan's throat closed. He thought of their father, his cold rejection, the years of silence. You don't need him. Ethan said. You've got us. Caleb's shoulders shook, and Ethan pulled him into a hug, the first real one they'd shared. It was brief, but it felt like a promise. The next morning, they drove to the hospital, Caleb in the back, clutching Liam's favorite comic book. The waiting room was crowded, the air thick with tension. Ethan and Marcus held hands, their eyes on the clock. Caleb sat apart, his notebook open, writing furiously. Ethan caught a glimpse names, not of Rico's crew, but of people Caleb had met at the shelter, people who might help. Hours crawled by. The surgeon emerged, her face tired but calm. Liam's strong, she said. The surgery went well. He's in recovery. Ethan's knees buckled, and Marcus caught him, tears streaming down both their faces. Caleb stood, his eyes wide, a mix of relief and guilt. Can I see him? He asked, his voice small. Ethan nodded, his heart too full for words. In Liam's room, the boy was pale but awake, his smile weak but real. Caleb sat beside him, reading from the comic book, his voice steady. Ethan watched, seeing not just the boy who'd stolen, but the brother who was trying to make it right. The crowdfunding page hit $10,000 that afternoon, a miracle fueled by strangers' hearts. But the lender's debt remained, a shadow over their relief. Ethan knew the fight wasn't over. Caleb's past, their father's rejection, the weight of survival it would follow them. But as he watched Caleb with Liam, he saw something new, a family, fragile but real, built not on blood, but on choice. Liam's recovery room was a cocoon of soft beeps and filtered light, his small hand clutching Caleb's as they laughed over a comic book. Ethan stood in the doorway, Marcus beside him, their shoulders touching. The surgery was a success, but the lender's contract loomed, its 15% interest a ticking bomb. The crowdfunding page had closed at $10,500, enough to cover immediate costs, but the debt would follow them home. Ethan's relief was tempered by the weight of what came next. Caleb had changed since the surgery. He was quieter, more present, helping with Liam's care, cooking meals, even joking with Marcus. But his notebook remained a constant. Pages filled with plans, apologies, promises. Ethan caught him writing late one night. The words raw, I'll make it right. Liam, I swear. Ethan's heart twisted. Caleb was trying, but trust was a slow rebuild, and Ethan couldn't forget the theft. A letter arrived that morning, the handwriting unmistakable their father's. Ethan's stomach churned as he opened it, Caleb watching from across the room. The words were cold. Formal, I received your letter. Caleb, I cannot help. You made your choices. Ethan crumpled the paper, fury rising. He'd expected nothing less, but it still cut. Caleb's face was blank, but his eyes were wet. I knew he wouldn't, Caleb said, his voice flat. But I had to try. Ethan crossed the room, his hand on Caleb's shoulder. You don't need him. You're stronger than he'll ever be. Caleb nodded, but the hurt lingered. Marcus broke the silence, his voice warm. We've got a plan. The fire station's doing a fundraiser for Liam. Community's stepping up. Ethan's throat tightened. He'd never been good at accepting help. But for Liam, he'd swallow his pride. The fundraiser was a whirlwind: firefighters grilling burgers, kids playing in the station's lot, neighbors donating what they could. Caleb helped, carrying trays, chatting with strangers, his smile tentative but real. Ethan watched, seeing glimpses of the brother he'd hoped for. A local reporter covered the event, and by evening, donations pushed their total to $12,000. It wasn't enough to clear the debt, but it was a start. That night, Caleb sat Ethan and Marcus down. "I've been talking to Tom," he said, his voice steady. "He's got a job for me at the shelter. Part-time, but it's something. I want to help with the payments." Ethan studied him, searching for the boy who'd run. "You sure?" he asked. Caleb nodded. "I owe you. All of you." Marcus smiled, his hand on Caleb's arm. "You're already helping, kid." The next week was a blur of hospital visits and planning. Liam was stronger, his laughter brighter, but the lender's first payment was due. Ethan and Marcus juggled bills, cutting corners, while Caleb started at the shelter, his earnings small but steady. Ethan noticed Caleb's notebook evolving less about Rico, more about goals: finish school, help Liam, be better. It was a start, but Ethan knew trust took time. One evening, Daniels called. Rico's crew flipped on him. He said, "We recovered some cash, not much. Maybe $2. It's yours if you want it." Ethan's heart leaped, but he hesitated. The money was tainted, tied to Caleb's pain. He looked at Caleb, who was helping Liam with homework. "Keep it," Ethan said. "Donate it to the shelter." Daniels paused, then agreed. Caleb overheard, his eyes wide. "You didn't have to," he said. Ethan shrugged. "It's not about the money anymore." As Liam slept, Ethan, Marcus, and Caleb sat together, the apartment quiet. Caleb spoke, his voice soft. "I never thought I'd have this. A family." Ethan's eyes stung. He saw Caleb not as the boy who'd stolen, but as the brother who was fighting to stay. The road ahead was long: debt, recovery, trust, but for the first time, Ethan believed they'd walk it together. The Portland skyline glowed faintly through the apartment's window, a reminder of the city that had both broken and rebuilt them. Liam was home, his laughter filling the small space as he challenged Caleb to a board game. Ethan watched, his heart full but heavy. The lender's payment was due tomorrow, and though the fundraiser and Caleb's job helped, they were still scraping by. Marcus caught his eye, offering a quiet nod. "We'll make it." Caleb had settled into a rhythm, working at the shelter, studying for his GED, and spending evenings with Liam. His notebook was now a journal, filled with reflections, not secrets. Ethan read a page when Caleb left it open. "I'm not running anymore. I want to be someone Liam looks up to." Ethan's throat tightened. Caleb was changing, but the past lingered, a shadow they all felt. The lender's office was a cold, glass-walled space downtown. Ethan handed over the first payment, his hand steady but his mind racing. The woman behind the desk nodded, her smile thin. "On time. Good. Next one's due in a month." Ethan nodded, the weight of the debt pressing harder. Outside, Marcus waited, his arm around Ethan's shoulders. "One step at a time," he said. Ethan leaned into him, grateful for the anchor. Back home, Caleb surprised them with dinner burnt but earnest. A gesture that made Liam giggle. "You're bad at this," Liam teased. Caleb grinned, ruffling his hair. "I'm learning." Ethan watched, seeing the family they'd built from pain and choice. The hospital bills were relentless, but the community's support donations, meals, visits kept them afloat. Ethan had never known kindness could feel so fierce. One night, Caleb sat them down, his hands nervous. "I got a letter," he said, pulling out an envelope. Not from their father, but from Tom, offering Caleb a full-time job if he finished his GED. "It's not much," Caleb said, "but it's stable. I want to help more." Ethan's eyes stung. "You're already helping," he said. Marcus nodded, his voice warm. "Your family, Caleb. That's enough." The next month tested them. Liam's recovery hit a setback, a minor infection. More bills. Ethan and Marcus worked overtime, while Caleb picked up extra shifts. His exhaustion mirrored in their own. The crowdfunding page was closed, but neighbors still dropped off checks. Food. Hope. Ethan marveled at it. The way strangers became lifelines. The way love stitched together their broken edges. One evening, as Liam slept, Caleb handed Ethan a small envelope. Inside was $500. Every cent from his shelter job. "For the debt," Caleb said, his voice steady. Ethan tried to protest, but Caleb cut him off. "I took from you. Let me give back." Ethan took the money, his hand shaking. It wasn't just the cash hit, was Caleb's heart, offered freely for the first time. The final piece came unexpectedly. A local charity, moved by their story, offered to cover half the remaining debt. Ethan cried when he heard, Marcus holding him, Caleb watching with quiet pride. The lender's grip loosened, and though the road was still long, Ethan saw light ahead. They weren't just surviving, they were healing. Months later, Liam was stronger, chasing Caleb around the apartment, their laughter echoing. Ethan and Marcus watched, hands entwined, their love a quiet strength. Caleb had passed his GED, his job secure, his notebook now a record of dreams of future, not a past. Ethan thought of their father, of rejection, of pain. They'd lost so much, but they'd gained more, a family forged in fire, held together by choice. As the city lights flickered outside, Ethan looked at Caleb, at Liam, at Marcus, and knew the truth. Love wasn't perfect, but it was enough. They'd faced betrayal, loss, and fear, but they'd chosen each other. And in that choice, they'd found something stronger than money, stronger than Pine Home, unbroken, whole.